Yes, pleasure as always to see you, Colonel Kuber, and look forward to listening to your talk. Ladies and gentlemen, I hand you over to the speaker on this first session in aerospace and defense and space.
I don't think we want to even talk about it, but yes, there's a nuisance value over there. And there is a 3.5 threat, I would say, and the half comes from the internal problems that could be there, although that is being sorted out most often. And therefore, the threat landscape is likely to remain the way it is. And if a failed general can become a field marshal, that shows the intent of the country to continue to create such threats to the sovereignty of the nation. Technical sovereignty, technological sovereignty, data sovereignty, and these are very important subjects which are very deep in themselves. And therefore, when we talk about data centers, when we talk about technologies that we have to harness, I think that is a strategic imperative of the country, and this cannot be overemphasized in a developing situation today when we see America first and when we see America weaning away from the NATO, when we see that EU is almost expected to fund themselves, and therefore we are seeing that there is a lot of inward-looking movements that have taken place across the world. I think propelled by our honorable Prime Minister when he started this Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative. Reduced import dependency goes without saying. Atmanirbhar mission, we all know, defense is one of the 25 sectors, and I think it's doing extremely well today. Harnessing the talent potential that we have, and it's very heartening to also see that many of our people who are abroad are coming back to the country to contribute. And there are a number of these people who have left the Western geographies coming back and contributing towards the country. And startup are the force multipliers and here to stay. The defense startup innovation system is defined by the IDEX. Actually, IDEX today, like I said, more than about 400 odd startups have already landed into contracts, and 24 of them have landed into larger contracts. In addition to the initial contract that is given by the IDEX itself. And like I said, it's a very, very small funding of 1.5 crores in IDEX, but it produces some excellent results. And that speaks about the desire and the fire that is there in the innovation ecosystem. To add to this, the MOD went on to create what is called as the IDEX Prime, where the funding has gone slightly up 10 crores. And then we have the Aditi scheme, which is increasing development for innovative technologies. These are all part of the startup initiative itself. Just that the funding has increased, and here we are talking about the limit of 25 crores, the Aditi scheme. So today we have different schemes in India in which you have 1.5 crores funding, you got 10 crore funding, you got the 25 crore funding, and then you can also go and put yourself in the open challenge, and which is where you can directly engage with the stakeholders with the innovative solutions you have. In addition to this, we have the Indus X, which is the India-US acceleration ecosystem, where we are sharing some of these startups between the two countries and creating value. In addition to this, we also have a similar initiative with Israel, and I think we are also planning to have such collaborative initiatives with other countries. There is a technology development fund, which is a grant in aid, and the fund contributes to about 90% of the value, and this is done extremely well for itself, even in terms of even during Operation Sindoor. There are about 4 or 5 such initiatives, which really had created value to the armed forces at that point in time. Dare to Dream is an initiative that is part of the DRDO, which could be a forerunner to the Technology Development Fund, where you just dare, have a dream, go to the DRDO, do your proof of concept for a small amount, which will be followed by a larger funding through the TDF. Now, here is something that's slightly different, and I think it calls for a great applaud to DRDO, which is called the DIACOE. DIA is DIA, DRDO Industry Academia. So the question was, can you get the whole ecosystem together? And the question was, can we go into more fundamental technologies? And the question was, can we use the expertise available with our IITs, IIScs, and BHUs and other engineering colleges across the country to harness uh, the quotient that is available with the professors and their teams to develop an ecosystem. So today we have about 15 centers of excellence which are already established, and more than about 1,000 crores have already been pumped in. In fact, last about 6 months, more than about 300 crores has been funded into the Center of Excellences, where the academia leads the innovation and leads it along with the industry and DRDO. This is a very interesting concept, and I would really encourage industry to go to the academia to brainstorm a particular idea and then create a very innovative project. And here again, the funding is up to 50 crores. TDF and Dare to Dream we talked about, and IDEX has been allocated about 450 crores, and this has been happening year after year. And the funding for IDEX is only increasing every year, and therefore we should see that this is something that we need to exploit and optimize. Just to give you a very um, um, uh, broad shot on how startups have received orders. You can see whether it is anti-drone systems, tactical radios, camouflage systems. So across disciplines. So if you see here, we'll have across disciplines, across service, and and companies are any number. This is just to give you a illustrative idea as to how these have progressed into larger orders of something 200 crores, somewhere 82 crores, somewhere 8 crores, like that. And there are more over there. And the idea is not to give you a very exhaustive list at this point in time, but just to say that should there be a good project and should there be a value that the armed forces see in it, actually progressing towards larger orders, and therefore the industry will never be disappointed. Some of the startups which have been in the forefront of Operation Sindoor, and this I picked it up from the open source, and therefore once again it will be pretty illustrative. But I should tell you that there are far more startups that have actually been there and done that. In fact, some of the air defense initiatives and the air defense effectiveness has been through some of the startups. Some of the uh, attack that we launched through drones have been through startups, or one of the layers of air defense for stopping the UAVs was also spearheaded by startups. And I think we've got a lot more going out there. Here are some success stories in defense. New Space has done extremely well. In fact, they are now working with US AFRL, and for R&D of air launch drones, they are doing the collaborative combat teaming arrangement with HAL. They are also doing the pseudo satellites, and there is another company out there which is Veda, which is also doing a very similar work. Then we have got Sagar Defense, which is just going, which is only increasing the innovation as well as the industry participation with the Navy mostly and with the MOD. Tonbo is a great startup based in Bangalore. Paris, of course, doing extremely well in strategic electronics. Bang Boom is doing extremely well. Axis Aerospace is actually the one company which actually developed and fielded the counter UAS systems to the army, and so there are so many of them. I think we need to capitalize on all that. So, do we have unicorns here? And yes, we do, and we are also seeing potential unicorns in so many more. And as you see some of these startups, it's only mind-boggling, I would say. In addition to whatever you're seeing on the screen, which which is publicly available information, I need to talk about this company which was doing this Li-Fi, the Velminai. Velminai is a startup out of Triple IT Delhi, and they are into using light as a medium of communication. And what is more interesting out there is that it is almost impenetrable. It is cyber proof, it is jamming proof, it is ring proof. And therefore, when I see a particular a similar startup in the UK which also used Li-Fi, I found that we are far ahead in terms of technology and in terms of innovation. So what's missing? So I think the story seems to be good, but then if you go around and ask the startup, they say, "Oh, I know where the shoe pinches." You talk all these things, but where are the ranges for me? Where do I go and test my equipment? And do I have to depend only on the government owned testing ranges? Are there any private labs which will be there? Will there be more advanced prototyping facilities which will be accessible to us? And can it be a public private partnership model? And is there an integration that is happening in terms of supply chain? Where is the supply chain resilience that we talk about? And are we going to have bottlenecks in terms of the supply chain? For example, somebody says, go and get the sensors from the US. You mean to say US will give us the sensors so easily? Or will they give us the strategic electronics that we decide? We have to depend on our own. We have to go back to Mistral. We have to go back to our data patterns. We have to go back to our own companies, and we have to bring it up from here. Question which some of the startups do ask is, how do we? Can anybody enable us for exports? And the MOD has a portal, and the MOD does something, but I think that may not be good enough for anybody. I think we have to figure out our own way as to how we are going to sell ourselves to the larger audience, rather than be dependent only on the one customer that we have, which is the Ministry of Defense and the DRDO startup handover pathway. So sometimes it may be frustrating for the startups to wait in the queue, or to just wait for the handing over the to for commercializing of DRDO technologies. But I must tell you, the success story out there is far more than what we hear. More than about 1700 technologies have been commercialized, and I must say that this is something that the DRDO is doing extremely well and in a very fast pace. So it's just that we need to figure out that particular place and optimize our chances of success. What would be a vision for the future? I just thought, since we are talking about self-reliance and Bharat being at the center of all this, therefore, I think we need to create engines of IPs, and where we develop the core IP, and then reduce the dependence on imported subsystems, build talent portfolios, enable us to join the global defense innovators. And I think there we have to score much more than what we're scoring today. Export champions in niche segments, we do have some of them, which we do find export potential. Especially today, Middle East is opening up in a very big way. Between UAE and others, we have a lot of traction going out there. And when we look at the global South, I think we are somewhere leading the global South, and therefore we need to penetrate the global South, and also neighborhood first, and look at East, and align ourselves with the Act East policy. Um, we need to create right skills, and many times I hear this in the industry saying that India is a place where labor arbitrage can be there, and labor is cheap. I don't think it's cheap anymore. Cheap is not a correct word to use, and I think we need to upskill ourselves to the extent that we say, no, 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 we are here for a value. And skill is always associated with the value. And therefore, I think we need to generate that high value engineering design and production jobs out there. Um, and I think as far as startups are concerned, we should promote this culture of continuous innovation and rapid prototyping. Therefore, I would like to recommend to the government that this is one thing that we need to put a large focus upon. One of the things I was always thinking about was if the capital budget of the MOD is about 2 lakh crores, close to 2 lakh crores, 1 lakh 75, 1 lakh 80,000 crores. I think 5% or 10% of that budget should be on innovations alone. And this is something that we can achieve. This is something which will actually rapidly transform the capabilities within the countries, and the capacities have to be taken care of by the big brothers. And there are challenges because resilience, frugality, and sustainable growth is something that a startup looks for. Because after all, these young boys and girls who leave the IITs for a dream that they want to transform the nation, they need to be handheld. They need to be given that assurance from the ecosystem that yes, we are here for them. And therefore, while this assurance may not be forthcoming as easily as we think it should be, I would really encourage them to stand by and create the concept of survival first. They need to survive. They need to prioritize staying alive and not fall into the valley of death. And this value of death can come very very quickly for startups, and that comes because of viability gap funding. The first stage they would always clear because their innovation capabilities will always lead them towards clearing that. But once that stage is cleared, transition towards value of death begins. And therefore it's very important that we don't fall into the valley. And therefore lean operations with minimal burn rate, with low overhead should be a thing, and not run after unicorn status. Instead of running after unicorn status, you can run after maintaining yourself for the time till the time that you're able to get that the critical mass should be important. And therefore we should aim for some low hanging fruits and get to that early cash flow and profitability and chasing valuations. Many times I find that startups start thinking of valuation. I said don't think about valuation at this point in time, because if you go to any valuer, and especially any of these companies which come and say, they say you have nothing as of now. But what is in your mind is something only you know, and what is there as an innovation index is something that only you know yourself, and therefore you need to adapt yourself, but in response to the market shifts. And often they are self-funded on modest capital injections. I think here is where the VCs should jump in, and I hope that we're able to see more VCs that come into this game. And then I found this thing of cockroach model and how it fits into aerospace and defense. This is one of the most talked about models when you think about startups, not only in India but across the world. But the defense sector being a very lethargic sector, it is like the elephant. When the elephant walks, the path is made, but the elephant has to walk. So for the elephant to walk, it will take time, and for to become an elephant also takes a little time. Before it is very important that what we see that the defense technology ventures, startups often faces long gestation cycles and unpredictable procurement timelines, which, however much you may try, is going to remain the way it is, because the services have got their priorities on that, and therefore they would. And the regulatory scrutiny also will often be a stumbling block, and therefore we need to figure out as to how we can still stay. So this makes the cockroach model lean, resilient, and revenue focused, and therefore it has to be an. This is the natural fit. So, like I said earlier, instead of chasing the unicorn style of hyper growth, we need to rely on modest grants, focus on field trials, and build dual use technologies to be able to uh, gyrate faster and further. They often trust they should partner with DRDO and the armed forces, monetize early, do their pilot developments, and then with these hallmarks, we should burn a little less cash and yet be ready for the big one. Way forward is to institutionalize startup interface cells, fast track the procurement, of course. However much, like I said, however much you try, there is a lethargy out there, and that lethargy is something that's not easily solvable, not only in India but across the world. In any democracy, these things will take time. But I must tell you what the armed forces have done of late is even in the emergency procurement, they call you for trials first, and once you clear, they are also able to place those orders within 3 to 4 months. Some things are changing out there, and therefore I would really recommend to the government that this emergency procurement should be kept on for the next about 10 years or so, along with integrating them to the startup ecosystem. And I would like to introduce a very innovative procurement out here. If you see a particular startup having a particular promise, so instead of asking for the trials at this stage, you say, okay, I'll promise you, I'm going to, I see the promise in you, and therefore I promise you the orders, and think I'm going to give you these orders, and that itself will be a great fuel that the startups can use to burn themselves out and produce the best armed forces. I showed repeat orders. So therefore, repeat order is something that's very important. It's not just the first contract, and therefore, to escape that, we have to make them. At the end of the day, what are we looking at? We are looking at a startup to become an MSME, to become a medium, and then to become a large company. So we want to see some of these companies grow up into the largest companies in the world, like the Palantirs, the Andurils of the world. The DPSU startup subcontracting mandate also needs to be a little more aggressive. And although we said 10%, I think the large companies should take it on, like we have the corporate social responsibility. I think I want to introduce what is called as the corporate professional responsibility. And therefore, as a CPR, there should be a drive with the larger companies to be able to mandate as much as they can, in fact, 10-20% or of the startups in this. And this will drive joint IP, modular integration, rapid building solutions. Testing infrastructure is always an issue. And I think we need to focus a little more on that and see that we are able to give a little more priority for our startups, and they don't have the deep pockets to withstand to wait for 6 months, 8 months just for trials. And therefore, I think we need to figure out a way we can push them focusing. Of course, co-engineering, killing hubs, and state-led startup clusters is something that we need to see. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. And should you, I can wait if there are any questions, or I leave it to the organizers. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.